And
back at her critics who put up this billboard in Times Square accusing her of costing New York thousands of jobs and economic opportunity by driving away Amazon's second headquarters. AOC tweeting out today, few things effectively communicate the power we built in fighting dark money and anti-worker policies like billionaire-funded groups blowing tons of cash on whack billboards. This one is funded by the Mercer's. PS, fact that it's in Times Square tells you this isn't for or by New Yorkers. And now the JCN is putting up two new billboards. This one says, hey, AOC, saw your whack tweak, but while the Congresswoman accuses her critics of being out of touch, a Siena poll showed that nearly 60% of New Yorkers approved of Amazon's plan. So who's really out of touch? What do you think, gang?
I'll tell you what this reminds me of, I remember seeing a parade by one of the unions a few years ago, and they were pretty much yelling at everyone on the sidewalk, this is a blue state, and I'm thinking, oh, does that mean I have to leave? What does this all mean here? And, to say that, I didn't realize this was a homogeneous place. There's diverse opinions here, and while I appreciate the Congresswoman's opinions here, I think it's way off. She's calling the Mercers anti-progressive. Maybe it's more like anti-Luddite and anti-doing things that are actually going to be proactive rather than sitting here and complaining about it and pushing things away that could be helpful and working with ways to be helpful. That's what I don't get here. It's misguided. I'm not exactly a Mercer advocate or anything like that, if you know me. But, to me, this is just completely misguided. And it's like, well, you want to defeat this sort of thinking? Give her enough rope, shine a light, let her keep talking. Go ahead.
All right. Well, just for the record, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is such catnip right now for media attention.
That's a great word.
She is to the left, or to the media world on the left, what Donald Trump was to the right a few years ago. And while she, attracts attention, it bears remembering she is a junior congresswoman from New York City. She is not in the leadership. She is not.
She's on some pretty powerful committees.
But, she is not the head of a committee. She is a vote. I'm not saying that is an insignificant thing. And she has a lot of Twitter followers, so she gets to shape the dialogue. And there were a lot of grassroots opposition to Amazon, which I'm on record, I think was a mistake. I think it'll be bad for Amazon. I think it will be bad for the city. But it certainly wasn't just her. There was a whole progressive movement behind this that is a problem, irrespective of whether or not we pay attention to her. A problem in the sense of, it's a zero-sum attitude toward economic development. The jobs are not going to come from nowhere.
But here's the thing. She is not willing to take responsibility for something that has really damaged New York City. And it's time that she's owning up to the fact that this was bad politics, bad policy, and it's bad for New Yorkers. If she can't stand a billboard coming back at her, then get out of the kitchen, girl, because guess what? She has sought this limelight.
Right.
She has won the limelight through being telegenic and being out there and having good social media presence. She has to live with that.
Liz, first of all, I wish it was just telegenetic. This woman, first of all, she just won this Twitter war. Let's not pretending this company with
I'm
the
not
billboard.
saying otherwise.
She called this billboard wickety wickety whack because the tippy tops are paying for it. You know what? People are going to believe that because basically this group was paid for by billionaires who founded it. Now, they're right, and what they're saying is right, but this is where the right has to be careful here. You can't prove to people, her fans, from the top down, like some trickle-down thing, that high minimum wages are bad, that all these policies are bad for you, the worker. The employer can't tell you that. The workers have to think that. And she exposed this, and unfortunately is going to win people onto her side from this battle. This company, this entity will probably have to change their name. She's a very dangerous fighter. That's why I think Trump doesn't engage her directly. She's much smarter at this than Warren and Bernie, who she used to work for, essentially. Bernie, she wins these Twitter battles. She's not right economically. She's not helping the people, but she's making better points. She is stronger. She's commanding the media presence. It's not just because she looks good. This is not the Sarah Palin of the left-wing party.
But Jonas,
this is the Donald Trump of the left-wing
one thing
party.
I would say is, point out, is that all the polls that were done right up until a couple of weeks ago showed that New Yorkers wanted Amazon to be here. They realized not only it'd be good for the community, but it's good for state tax revenues, too. I mean, just the income that the state would make on the 25,000 workers adds up to $5 billion over 10 years. Governor Cuomo knows that, and I think the people of New York do as well.
And again, I mean, it's not
a few weeks from now, these numbers are going to start changing. She's going to start winning. That's like saying the Republican Party 20 years ago, more of them were for immigration. Those numbers have changed because of strong politicians changing what people think about certain issues, free trade, whatever it is. That's what she can do about socialism on the left. She's, I think, that powerful.
I would agree. I mean, and you make really good points about just this is a potent social media presence that can translate into influence and some degree of political power, as we saw from Donald Trump. But look, we talked a lot about this with Amazon a few weeks ago. Amazon also just packed up and left. I mean, there was enough support within those communities that if they had really been committed to engaging, and the fact is Bezos, as we talked about with his own issues with the Inquirer, is not somebody who particularly wants to engage adversaries. He either wants an open arms or he says, we'll just go somewhere else. So there was enough support there that had he engaged, it's likely the outcome would have been different. It's not just like Amazon was, defeated, tail between their legs. It's much more that they said, we're
okay,
not worth it.
But I want to come back to the fact that this is the first time that this young woman who kind of shoots from the hip and has soared to everyone's consciousness sort of overnight has kind of come up against a real issue where she's in the wrong place, according to most of the people whose lives might have been impacted, and also by fellow Democrats.
Right.
So the fact that, she's having a Twitter battle, donors, I totally disagree with you. Take her on. I mean, if she's wrong about something, are we supposed to ignore that and sort of be cowed by 9 million Twitter followers?
Liz,
I don't think so.
You don't see her sound exactly like what people said about Donald Trump at the early stages, that he was
look how well he did.
He was saying crazy things that you can't say about being here. He was wrong. He was saying things like, I'll pay off the debt in 8 years. We know that was not true, but the fact is people started to believe in the message, and he got elected, and the other person he was against was very weak. This woman is doing that. She's not making sense from a pure economic point of view. That's not the point. The point is she's going to shift the needle.
So how do you think you should counter her? I mean, just ignore her, or... I think it's important to engage.
By the way, what you're looking at right there is one of the other newest billboards. It says, hey, AOC, this billboard costs about $4,000, but you just cost New York 25,000 jobs and $4 billion in annual lost wages. Ouch. I think this is going to have an impact.
I do,
that's the point here. That's the point here. We're in a situation now where no one won. New York City lost. We don't know what would have happened with this, and we're never going to find out unless... again, I actually appreciate that Congresswoman OCASIO-CORTEZ has a different voice. Yeah. I can respect that. But how about if she was actually extending the olive branch, reaching out to companies like this who could be potential employers and say, hey, here's how you could help the community. Here's how you could invest in schools, invest in the community, preserve the community, work with us.
Right.
That's
She'd have to believe in capitalism,
that's a real progressive thing.
And she's a socialist. I mean, that's the bottom line here.
Everyone wants a better life. Call it whatever you want. Socialism, capitalism, blend the two. She needs to label everything. That's her political shtick for right now. It's going to get old, just like the other side gets old, just saying no to everything. That's it.
I don't know how you blend two polar opposites, though. That's a problem. We got to move on.